Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And we're up to the Florida Panthers, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Going into this season, of course, got Joey Ganzi, who covers the Panthers, one of the only, actually not one of the only writer that covers the Panthers here at the Hockey Writers. He's always on these videos. Joey, how's it going?
Um, Words cannot express how happy I've been for the past 3 months. I've spent a crap ton of money on merchandise, hats, signs, cups, even. It's bad. It's only gonna get worse.
Well, I mean, the Panthers, their first cup ever after going to the final last year, and then this year winning the cup. Long time coming for a team for a franchise that's been had its ups and downs. I mean, they've been through rebuilds. They're at the height of their powers now, and had pretty much returning the same team this season. I mean, save for maybe a couple defensemen, probably one big one. But they got Sam Reinhart re-signed, which is a massive thing. They thought a lot of people thought he was going to enter free agency, but he re-signed, said he only wanted to be with the Panthers, so there was really no chance he was going to go anywhere else. They just needed to have the cap space for him, and they did, and re-signed him. So their forward group's coming back pretty much the same. So let's start there because, of course, it's coming back pretty much the same. What do you think about this? Is it still formidable enough to maybe repeat? I mean, they were really good. The only really difference here, you've got Jesper Boquist on the fourth line, Thomas Nosek. Bottom six is pretty much the only changes that you got, but you got your core group returning.
Yeah, I was at first skeptical. I thought maybe because of all the players leaving because of the supposed cup tax. I thought they were going to take a decline, but you bring in a guy like Thomas Nosek, his faceoff percentage is absolutely insane career-wise, especially in the playoffs, over 57%. Jesper Boquist is still a very strong. Nate, that's his defense. My apologies. And the top six group still comes back as you discussed before, and they've shown even last season they can win tough games. The forward group I don't think declined at all. I'm not willing to say it got better, but it definitely I actually cover this in a piece. I don't think it got worse. I
Hmm.
think it's still at that strong level. Yeah, maybe the players may not be, your Nick Cousins or your Vladimir
Mhm.
Tarasenko's, but they're still very strong enough to get the job done. And a lot of these players have proved that both in regular season and playoff play. So I don't think it's a step back.
Another guy they were able to re-sign was Anton Lundell, which is a big thing, RFA, and he returns probably one of the, let's say, Alexander Barkov light. He's similar player, and he's on your projected on daily faceoff third line center. So I mean there's just a lot of upside for this group, like you mentioned with Nosek, a very underrated addition to the bottom six. And then you got like Jesper Boquist, who's shown flashes of offense in the past. A rookie like Maki Samoskevich could potentially be a difference maker in the bottom six, but I'll leave that for later on. I really like this group too. I think they didn't get, yeah, like you said, didn't get better, but pretty much stayed the same, which is good enough to win the cup. So I think you're pretty good there. All right, let's move to the defense because it did see a lot of change. They added Nate Schmidt, who was bought out by the Winnipeg Jets. He comes in, Adam Boquist, a later signing, again, a buyout from the Columbus Blue Jackets. I don't know if he was bought out. He was just not no, he was just not re-signed as an RFA. So they let him go off a qualifying offer. So what do you think about this defense? Now, is this group good enough, or did they lose too much going into the season?
I don't think they lost a ton. I think Brandon Montour was slightly declining. He had some pretty bad turnover issues in the postseason. He didn't have the best season last season. So I think the writing was kind of on the wall. He wasn't going to come back. I do believe Adam Boquist is going to get is going to be set in the system because now he has his brother and he has
Mm.
someone to be around all the time in the locker room. Nate Schmidt actually spent some time with Maurice, so I think he'll be able to adapt into the system now.
Hmm.
Um, And of course, you replace the losses of Oliver Ekman-Larsson with Nate Schmidt as
Yeah.
well. So I still think it's formidable. I think that is the group that may have stepped back maybe just a bit, but it's still strong enough to get the job done. And I think it only comes down to Zito was trying to prepare for the departure of Montour because, as I said, the writing was on the wall with the way he
Yeah.
was playing last season. And they're not bad pickups. They can put up points. Some of them have playoff experience. I think they're good enough to, like I said, get the job done one more
Mm.
year.
One thing about Nate Schmidt, he's a very underrated guy. I think, maybe got paid a bit too much on his last contract. So maybe that's why he hadn't lived up to what it was. But he is still a very good defenseman. And he was one season here in Vancouver. I thought he was pretty good. But of course, didn't seem to fit with the team at the time.
And
But
Oliver Ekman-Larsson had a season in Vancouver,
there
didn't do very
too.
well. And then he went
Yeah.
to the Panthers. Look what happened.
There you go. It could have the same type of thing. I think he's still a really good defenseman. I think he even put up some points. So he is a very good addition and under a really low contract. And that's what they did with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And like you said, look what happened. So it could be a second iteration of that this season.
Yeah, there's something about Zito. He can find players that are like, I don't want to say rejects because that sounds kind of messed up. Well, then
Yeah.
again, the Knights called themselves rejects for a long time.
Yeah.
But but he finds players that didn't perform well or were bought out or just put on waivers, and he turns them into gold. Look what happened to Gustav
Oh
Forsling.
yeah.
Speaking of
And
the Canucks.
the Canucks connection to this team, like, geez.
I'm not even trying to roast you. I swear.
No. I'm bitter with Forsling because I really don't like that they traded him as a prospect way back when. I mean, obviously, you didn't know he was going to turn into what he is, but I thought he had a lot of upside, and they traded him for nothing. I mean, it just didn't. I didn't think the trade was required at the time, but look what he's now. He's one of the best defensemen, two-way defensemen in the league now, and just hindsight 2020. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, goaltending, and this one, I mean, pretty much is Sergei Bobrovsky returns as the starter. The backup is kind of up in the air. What do you think about this? I mean, Bobrovsky, like I said, is the starter. Where do you see the backup kind of coming in? Spencer Knight is, of course, still in the mix. Of course, Anthony Stolarz moved on to the Maple Leafs, so he's not here anymore. How do you see the goaltending playing out this season?
I think they're gonna have Spencer Knight to start as the backup and see how much he's really come through. Last season or 2 seasons ago, he was in the NHL Player Assistance Program for struggling with, I believe it was OCD.
Hmm.
And he couldn't really keep himself up that season in the NHL. Last season, he actually did relatively well in the AHL. So I want to say they're trying to like slowly push him back into the NHL level. He was at training camp last season. I don't expect that to change this season. But he is on a short leash, and that's why they went out and signed Chris Drieger, who spent some time with the Panthers, and he actually wasn't bad. It's no wonder the Kraken took him for a reason in their expansion draft. But I think they're going to see what they can salvage. I don't want to say salvage because it's wrong, but like because obviously everyone goes through a tough time. Everyone has their own demons and their own battles. And I think it would be a huge success story if Spencer Knight can turn this around and become a fantastic backup and eventually the starter. He was drafted for a reason. But I still believe he is on a short leash. And I think if he starts struggling, we could see Drieger come back up from the AHL and get some starts again.
Well, that's why they signed Stolarz last season too, as they weren't sure. So it could be another situation like that, and Drieger just comes up and is the backup, and Knight plays in the AHL. So I don't know. I'm hoping Spencer Knight can do that too, because it'd be a great story for him to rebound and be a Masterton nominee potentially if that happens. He is I mean, of course, he was drafted so high, and he's a very good goaltender, and he just has to kind of get into the swing of things, I guess, again, and we'll see what happens there. All right, looking at the division, this division is every time I do an Atlantic division, it's very interesting. There's so many different teams that seems to, I'm hoping or not hoping, but I predicted every season, oh, this is the year Ottawa takes a step forward. This is the year Buffalo makes, and every year it doesn't happen. Do you see Florida being the cream of the crop of this division still? And where does it kind of play with the rest of the division here?
I still think they're gonna have an iron grip on the division, but I don't think it's gonna be by a wide margin like it was last season. It might come down to the last couple weeks of the
Mhm.
year to see who really gets it. You know, even though Tampa lost Stamkos, they're still a very strong team. Toronto has changed dramatically, and there's then every regular season they were a strong team.
Mm.
Boston's always trying to get back in the mix. That division's tough, regardless
Yeah.
of who you're playing. You know, we joke about Ottawa, but every time they play the Panthers, they play each other hard. Everybody in the penalty box on the ice. Come on, like that division is cutthroat. But I still think the Panthers are still gonna play up to their potential. They've shown they can handle, tough games, tough individual games, both on the road and at home. I don't see that, like I said, I don't see that changing too much. But, sometimes they're always wrong. I mean, even Buffalo got a little bit stronger. They can
Yeah.
make a good push.
There's just so many, even the Montreal Canadiens with Lane getting added, and they're a team, of course, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be an interesting team to play against too. So yeah, it is very interesting and cutthroat, tough division.
Yeah.
If all of them kind of play well, it's going to be really hard to get out of into the playoffs.
Like one of these teams could have a really great season and still miss the playoffs because of the
Yeah.
division they're in.
Yeah, that's very true. And the Metro, of course, adds to that drama too, and they're a pretty good division too. All right, let's get to our quick fire round, and these are just quick 1 or 2 sentence answers here. So let's start with the biggest storyline or question mark going into this season for the Panthers.
I think it's pretty obvious. Can they repeat?
Yeah.
Can they copy their in-state rivals in Tampa and go back to back?
Well, they've done it two times into the final twice. Maybe they'll do it 3 times into the final.
And much like Tampa, they went to the finals 3 times. They end up losing the last one. Florida lost the first one, and they won the second one. Could they win the
Reverse.
third one?
Do the reverse thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They have the team to do it, I think, this season. I mean, still pretty strong throughout, like we've talked about, pretty strong in all 3 areas. So definitely are still really good and have a good chance of it. All right, 1 or 2 breakout stars. I mean, this is probably a tough one because there was quite a few that did break out last season. So who's left?
Mackie Samoskevich, he had small flashes last season. I think if they put him on the roster for a brief moment, I think he's going to flash, or he's going to show flashes again. He was fantastic in the AHL. He's fantastic in college. I think he's due to step up.
Mhm. I mean, right now he's slated to play on. I'm just looking at the projected lines, right, and he's with Lundell and Louis Starnen. So I mean, playing with Lundell, it's a pretty good centerman to play with to start. So I really like Samoskevich. I wrote his prospect profile way back when, and I really like his upside. He's very creative. He's a very exciting player to watch. So I hope he does well because I really like him as a prospect. So we'll see. All right, someone that needs to bounce back from last season.
It's really hard to pick. I'm
It
going to be
is
real with
tough.
you.
Yeah.
It's a tough selection. If we're going regular season, if there's one person I have to pick, it might be Evan Rodriguez. He didn't do so hot in the regular season, but he exploded in the playoffs to the
That's
point
fine. Yeah.
in the cup final to the point where he was almost in the Conn Smythe conversation.
Yeah.
Um, I think he absolutely he has the teammates to get it done. He obviously loves it down here, and he's a fantastic player. If I had to pick anyone, Evan Rodriguez.
Just bounce back from his regular season play.
Exactly, that's it. I mean, if I really had to point it out,
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think he can continue just maybe as a springboard from the playoffs and just start the regular season right off that way. So, but he could also be a guy that just steps up in the playoffs, which is not bad thing. There's a lot of players that do that. They just can play in those high intensity games and perform, and it's not a bad thing.
yeah,
So,
Florida has that with Sam Bennett, so it makes sense.
yeah, for sure. All right, someone or something that could be an X factor this season.
Uh, the two-way play of Alexander Barkov. It's the
Mhm.
reason they got to the final last year. It's the reason they got the final the year before. It's the reason they're a very competitive team. He's been the face of the franchise or one of the faces of the franchise for a long time. If he can stay healthy for a full 82 game season, I think they can win the Atlantic Division
Mm.
again. Um, he won the Selke this past season. Every year he's a candidate to win it. Every year he's consistently shows why he's so underrated.
Yeah.
He needs to be more in the conversation of this is an elite player and I want him to win the MVP, but it just doesn't happen. I don't know if because they want to see more goals from him, and well, that's fine, but he's a Patrice Bergeron. He's more of a two-way
Yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
but it also doesn't help, even though it has grown a lot over the past few years with the success. Unfortunately, South Florida is not a big market for a player
Mm.
like for Alexander Barkov. It's as if like Austin Matthews was down here. He may not get that much. He may not get that much attention
Yeah.
because he's in a small market. Unfortunately, it's gotten better over time. Do not get me wrong,
Mm.
but unfortunately, it's still considered small market.
Yeah. No, I definitely. And I think as Barkov, he's a guy that he I think he's going to end up winning a few more Selkies now that Bergeron's retired because he's
Just a few.
just a few. I think he's going to win quite a few because he is that type of player where he's just so good defensively and really good offensively too. And he's not going to be a guy that'll hit the 100 points or anything like that, but he's going to hit those, I mean, decent numbers. I mean, they're still really good numbers, but his big part is that good defensive play, and you need that in the league too. So I really like Barkov too. I think he seems to be okay with the lesser fame playing in Florida than being in a big market. So
It might be better for him to be out of the spotlight, honestly.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's talk about some prospects. We talked about Samoskevich. Who do you think could surprise and make the roster out of camp, apart from him? Because I don't know if it would be a surprise if he makes the roster.
No, it definitely wouldn't be a surprise. He's been very talented. Justin Stolarz has been
Hmm.
making a lot of noise in the AHL and the minors. Very very strong forward. Doesn't mind getting dirty. Very fantastic player. I could see him maybe potentially seeing the ice a couple times, but I think the only way he does is if unfortunately if someone is injured or if someone's
Hmm.
not performing up to par.
Yeah, the group is pretty stacked at this point without injuries. So he would have to really perform in training camp to unseat someone that's set to be in the roster right now.
Right.
All right. Apart from prospects who make the team, who should everyone be watching this season outside of the NHL?
Outside, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question one more time?
Just prospects in general, outside of the organization or outside of the NHL, but that probably won't make the team.
I'm trying to think of a good name here. Kai Schwintz.
Yeah,
He's actually in the Panthers organization. He's been not bad. I watched him at the development camp, and I felt like he was skating circles around players. It was just unreal to watch.
Hmm.
He was fast. He didn't mind driving to the net. He didn't mind making a big defensive play. He was like I said, I like it was like a blur sometimes watching this kid. He's insane. I don't know if he's gonna make the roster this year, but they definitely need to keep him.
Yeah, so keep an eye on him for sure. All right, this could be an easy one. Actually, there's a few candidates here. Who is going to lead the team in scoring this season at the forward side and the defense?
For on defense, I'm gonna say Matthew Tkachuk. Since he's arrived at South Florida, he's been one of the biggest reasons for the culture change. He's been when he's healthy, he's an unreal type of player,
Hmm.
and he's dangerous on every minute on the ice, and he doesn't mind getting dirty. We've seen in the playoffs, we've seen in the regular season. He had 100 and I feel terrible forgetting. I believe 106. He had a 100-point season a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
He fell a little short because of injury this past regular season, but he's the face of the offensive core. There's no reason why he couldn't do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he was really good in the playoffs, but he wasn't the guy that everyone was kind of focused on, not like last Stanley Cup final where he just dominated. But you look at the points he still put up, he still put up quite a few. But just wasn't that main spotlight guy that seemed like the last Stanley Cup final. So, and he was hurt too.
Yeah,
So,
and on the
which is
defense
a big thing.
and on the defensive side, I think it's going to be Aaron Ekblad. He's a couple seasons ago, before he took that bad injury, he was having a Norris caliber season, and I want to say he still got the end of him. Now that he has a cup under his belt, and in a couple of seasons he's going to be a free agent. Maybe he wants to try to see about playing for a contract. Look what happened with Sam Reinhart. He's still he can still do it. It's just a matter of if he can stay healthy. But if he does stay healthy, I think Aaron Ekblad is going to lead the team in defensive scoring.
Yeah, he's on his last season of his contract. Is that what? Trying to think.
Believe it is this season. Yeah.
Yeah. So he could be he's going to be talked about, of course, her extension and all that. So, but yeah, I think he's probably the biggest one to probably lead the defense in scoring. I want to say an underrated name is Nate Schmidt, but Ekblad will probably do it.
But then you also have Forsling, and Forsling's also been shown to be very good offensively with the puck.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a toss up between Ekblad and Forsling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, probably be one of those guys. All right, let's finish the show with bold prediction for this season.
I'm going to give you two. Matthew Tkachuk's going to lead the league in point scoring, and the Panthers are going to repeat.
There you go. Yeah, it is bold because it hasn't happened since, of course, the Lightning did it back to back. It doesn't happen very often where you got the same cup winner, because there's so many tough teams. It is just so, the parity is insane in the NHL right now. So, I mean, it would be a big thing for them to repeat. And Tkachuk leading the league in scoring, I mean, that would be pretty big too, because there's so many other guys like David,
Draisaitl.
They're all up there all the time. But he definitely has the ability to do it. He's had a 100-point season. So we'll see if he can do it again this season. All right. Thanks, Joey, for coming on, talking to the Panthers. We'll see if they can do the same thing next season. And we're talking about them again as a Stanley Cup champion. But make sure checking out everything from the hockeywriters.com from Joey, because there's no one else that writes about the Panthers. But make sure checking out anything that comes out from him, and any of our videos on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. Check all those out. Check out all the previews already out on the channel. But until our next one, we'll see you next time.